All right, we've got Republican lawmakers, meanwhile, urging that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg just recuse herself from this whole travel order case. Among other things, right after Donald Trump was elected, she had referred to the president-elect as a faker who had a substantial ego. She had some other choice things to say, but I can't repeat them on live TV. Anyway, Congressman Jeff Duncan of the beautiful state of South Carolina with me right now. The congressman is pushing this notion that the justice should recuse herself. Again, does it go back, Congressman, very good to have you, does it go back to what she has said about the president in the past, or is it more?
Well, Neil, thanks for having me, and it goes directly back to what she said about candidate Trump. You know, she's criticizing him for what he said on the campaign trail, but yet when he was running, she had a number of things to say. She couldn't imagine what this place, Washington, would be like under his presidency. She even went so far to say that what her husband may have said about them moving to New Zealand. So if you take all that in context, she absolutely should recuse herself from this travel ban Supreme Court hearing.
You always wonder, though, about the justices who keep their opinions to themselves, though, you know, because she just blurted it out, I remember, and I'm wondering, do others share the same view? She just was, you know, maybe dumb enough to say it before a microphone.
Right. Well, I don't think justices ought to comment about politics, politicians, or candidates. I think they ought to just be neutral when it comes to that. They ought to focus on the Constitution of the United States.
Do you think they are, though? Do you think at their core they are, or they're, you know, they are, obviously we all have our strong opinions, and I readily agree with you, Congressman. I think you're right. They shouldn't let that intrude here, but she made the mistake of publicly saying something that alone should recuse her.
Yeah, I mean, because she did say something about President Trump, she should recuse herself from this particular case.
You know, the reason why I mentioned it is Justice Kennedy, who might or might not be considering, you know, stepping aside himself, had wanted to get a good measure, we're told, of Donald Trump and what kind of president he would be, what kind of justice he would appoint. And sure enough, when he saw that his old law clerk, you know, Neil Gorsuch would be appointed, we are told, sir, that he felt more comfortable the notion of stepping down, confident that President Trump would pick the right person. What do you make of that?
Well, Trump did pick the right person in Gorsuch, and there's a lot of optimism here in this city anyway, speculation that Kennedy is going to step down. And if he does, then President Trump's going to have another opportunity. And I believe he'll follow the same model with a Gorsuch-type justice nominee, and we'll see what the Senate does. But I applaud Trump for Gorsuch. I think he has done exactly the right thing so far.
You know, while I have you, Congressman, this health care fallout with this latest initiative, we're told that this measure, the Senate measure, according to the CBO, will save about $321 billion or pare that amount off deficits over the next 10 years, which is a couple of $100 billion more than the House version would. Right. But that's already started a competition among some in the Senate to win over reluctant Republicans by adding a lot of goodies that would, use up some of that $200 billion. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't want them to add any goodies to eat up that. We want deficit reduction. We need to get our fiscal house in order. We need to quit spending more money than we're bringing in. We need to quit borrowing money. We have a $20+ trillion debt right now. We're going to address the debt ceiling later on this year. I applaud the Senate for at least having some deficit reduction more than the House did. I think it's the right thing. But spending in general, if we're going to work on our deficit and our debt crisis, we've got to get into the mandatory spending, and that's what we're encouraging our colleagues as we go through this appropriations process and the budget here to look at mandatory spending. So I applaud the Senate. We're still looking at their bill. I don't want us to make the mistake and judge the Senate bill, maybe have a Pelosi moment where we judge it without having read it. We're going to read it, see what the final version looks like, and see whether we support it as a conservative member of Congress and whether we support what the Senate does.
But I take it from what you're saying then, sir, that the $200 billion in additional budget savings over 10 years is something you would welcome and wouldn't want to see that frittered away on other things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Neil. I think it's the right move to start reducing the deficit spending here. We've been talking about that for 6 years, so it's nothing new for me to have that position.
All right, Congressman, thank you so much.
Yeah,
good chatting with you again.